All right, good afternoon, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. I know it looks like we've still got some folks coming in from the waiting room, but we will get started. Welcome to our 5th Quad County Collaborative webinar. Today's webinar is titled Building Forward for Better Service, Lessons Learned for Back to School. Really glad to have you all here today. I'm just going to cover a few housekeeping items. We've got a packed agenda as usual, so we'll dive right in. Next slide, please. So to just review a few housekeeping items as usual, if you encounter any technical difficulties, please sign off and try re-entering the webinar. And if you have any problems that still persist, you can type us in the chat box. Tommy is here to help with any technical difficulties. We do have attendees in listen-only mode. So please use the chat box for any questions for speakers. We will have a question and answer time towards the end of the session today. And a recording and the slides of the webinar will be emailed out and posted online on the No Kid Hungry website within 2 weeks. So with that, we can go to the next slide and I will pass it off to Robin.
Okay, I think Tommy has to start my video. Okay, here we go. Okay, thank you for that welcome, Kelly. Well, I'm really proud to tell you that we are actually celebrating our 1-year anniversary as the Quad County CNAP School Meals Collaborative, which was born out of the urgent need that arose from the COVID crisis. And it arose to support schools and elicit community support of our partners. So during the past 16 months, our schools have really gritted their teeth. You flexed your muscles and know-how, and you marched forward with the mission to feed children and support families. And you did many gymnastics, back bends, twist turns, loop-de-loops to make the impossible happen to serve children this past school year. And new words came out and are defined, like grab and go and food boxes, took on a whole new meaning. So during our CNAP Quad County School Meal Access webinars, I wanted to give you a few stats because I thought that might be interesting to you. So during the past year, we have featured over 23 school districts. We have had 26 food and nutrition staff featured as well, of which 19 have been child nutrition food service directors. So that's 73% of our food service presenters have been directors. We've had 15 community partners that have presented, as well as a total of 41 different people representing 33 different organizations and schools during this past year. So I think we can give ourselves a little bit of applause at this time for the hard work that everyone has shared and contributed. And too, I just wanted to give a shout out to Matt Upton, who's with Speaking of Success, who is featured at every single one of our webinars. So from the beginning, we have had 4 Southern California Public Health Department collaboratives, all part of Calfresh Healthy Living, joined together from Riverside, Orange, Los Angeles, and San Bernardino counties to add support and enhance communication between organizations, increase access to healthy food, address food insecurity, support policy systems and environmental changes, as well as inform and educate. Our county nutrition action partnerships are responsive to the needs of each community and work with our partners to address a common cause. So I encourage all of you to connect with your local CNAP representatives. And on this slide, we have Kelly Warner. She is with LA County Department of Public Health. Her CNAP is called Nutrition Access LA. We have Gina Osborne from Orange County Health Care Agency, who's coordinator of the County Nutrition Action Plan of Orange County. We have Andrea Moray from Riverside University Health System with Riverside County Nutrition Action Partnership, and then also myself from the San Bernardino County Department of Public Health, and I'm coordinator of the County Nutrition Action Partnership here. So you can go on to the next slide. In addition to the CNAP coordinators, our Quad County School Meal Access Collaborative is co-chaired by an amazing team. We have the bouncy and effervescent doctor. She's now Dr. Betty Crocker, who's the Child Nutrition Services Director of Redlands Unified School District. We have our very supportive and willing to assist in any way, Julie Calderon, Director of Child Nutrition Services from Adelanto Elementary School District. And then we have the No Kid Hungry Superstar team, which includes Andrea Cuellar, program manager, who's so organized and detail-oriented. We have our behind the scenes, Tommy Lee, who is program associate, our tech and media guru, and also our amazing and visionary Daisy Munguia, who is now the No Kid Hungry associate director. She got a promotion. And our creative multitasker and supermom, Robin Hernandez, who is the school meal access manager. So without further ado, I'd like to hand it off to Robin Hernandez, who will provide the No Kid Hungry update. Thank you, Robin.
Thank you so much, Robin. I appreciate that warm welcome. And I think I shared my video. I don't know if it's working now. Tommy, you might have to enable it for me. But with that, thank you so much for allowing me to join you all today to provide some No Kid Hungry updates. So if we could go to the next slide, please. So I wanted to just start off with what's on everybody's mind going into the next school year. We've got some changes in waiver status. So I just wanted to share some kind of quick key takeaways of what the differences are between last year's SSO waivers and this year's waivers. So last year you could not, you could serve under SFSP as an option. This year, SFSP is no longer available as an option to serve. Another new change is that you may serve SSO, but be reimbursed at the SFSP rural rates. So that's actually a really good thing for you. And then also last year, you were able to serve SSO on weekends, holidays, and school breaks. Because they're trying to shift back towards a slightly more normal, whatever that means, school year, they're trying to shift back into only serving during school days and unanticipated school closures only. So those will be the only times you will be allowed to serve under SSO in this coming school year. The area eligibility is extended broadly now to everyone for SSO and for CACFP at-risk and NSLP after-school stack. And then the serving waivers before, non-congregate models and the meal pattern waivers. This year, if you want to take advantage of those waivers, you must apply in advance, and they will be approved on a case-by-case basis and not for an entire school year. They will be approved only for a limited time. So if you do want to have non-congregate meals in place for whatever reason throughout the school year, you'll have to reapply several times depending on the time period. Next slide, please, Tom. And then just some key takeaways from the CDE town hall for those of you that may have missed it. They touched on some things to come in the 22-23 school year. So the following school year, when universal meals, the school meals for all bill will be in place, you'll be required to offer both breakfast and lunch. And essentially this program is going to provide $650 million in state funds to cover the gap in funding between free and reduced price meals and the students that would not otherwise be approved for those free meals. So keeping in mind you are running a federal meal program, even though the state is allowing universal meals for all, you still must meet all federal regulations and data collection, counting, and claiming. And another caveat to this, the CDE mentioned that all CEP eligible districts or individual schools must apply for CEP by June 30th of 2022. So again, keeping in mind that will help maximize your federal reimbursements and help support the Universal Meals Program. So if you have a 40% ISP at a school or grouping of schools, you must apply. Next slide, please, Tommy. And that kind of transitions into what I wanted to mention about our CEP work group. We just wrapped up CEP work group 1.0, which was very successful, where we helped school districts navigate the process of figuring out how to apply for CEP and everything that goes along with it. And we are going to be launching a CEP work group 2.0 this next coming year. So we can definitely assist you with figuring out how to get your schools transitioned onto the CEP track. And with that, I'd also like to give a special congratulations to El Rancho, Escondido, Vallecitos, and Palo Verde as CEP expansion grant awardees for the coming year. Next slide, please. And for those of you that may not already know, I hope most of you do, No Kid Hungry does provide support on just about everything you could need. If you are interested in maximizing your participation and starting innovative programs to make a difference in the kids in your district's lives to help increase access to your programming, we want to partner with you. And this is a list of just some of the free supports that we can provide you. So whatever it may be, whether it's breakfast after the bell, just helping increase access in general, please get in contact with us and we can get you connected to a program manager that works in your area. Next slide, please. One upcoming event you'll want to definitely make sure to circle on your calendar. We have a national webinar on August 10th, Making After School Meals Work in the 21-22 school year. So it's going to be all about CACFP and what you need to know for the coming year. I will share the link in the chat shortly. Next slide, please. And that's all I have for you today for the No Kid Hungry update. Thank you so much, and I'm going to pass it back to Kelly.
Robin, thank you so much for that great update. Appreciate all those great information and resources. And next we will go to Megan Cook. She's the Director of Child Nutrition Services at Corona Norco Unified School District. She's going to give an update on back to school strategies. So go ahead and take it away, Megan. Megan, you are on mute. Make sure we hear you. Sorry. There we go.
All right. So a little bit about me. I come from a district that's 45% free and reduced. We have 53 schools. We are K-12, and we cover 158 square miles. Now, we have 6 year-round schools. So what that means for us is that we have already started our school year for a small chunk of our students. And what that gives is an advantage to all of us, because I could talk about our opening of schools and give you some warnings of, some things that we saw and some strategies that you might be able to use for the start of your school year. So I will talk to you about our service model, which we are rolling out in 3 parts, and then I'll also go over those challenges and strategies. All right, so we have 6 schools that are already in session. So these schools are in part 1 of our rollout, which is back to the basics first. Small menu, no PIN numbers, no a la carte, no salad bars. Why? Because our priority is quicker lines and remastering our kitchen skills for our staff. So we have hot food service, it's back. We are trying to get as far away from IW as possible because we know that our community is has that individually wrapped IW fatigue. We're not using our waivers unless needed, besides obviously the seamless summer waiver that'll allow us to feed everyone for free. All right, so let's talk about the students. What does that look like for our kids? Well, they're going through the cafeteria. They are in stable groups because we are still required to be able to conduct contact tracing in the event that a student comes to school sick. However, our stable groups are by grade level. So as you can imagine, those are pretty large stable groups. So we are not doing staggered lunches. They're not coming in by classroom. They are coming in by grade group. We're also utilizing outdoor seating to the best extent possible. The exception, of course, is inclement weather, whether that be extremely hot days or rainy weather. So once we get the hang of part 1, we will jump into part 2, which will consist of a la carte and water at the secondary school sites. So in addition to getting back to normal, or back to better is how I like to call it, we are also implementing a new point of sale. So with the start of the school year, we will be side training all of our staff. And then once everybody's ready, we will roll out those PIN numbers for our students. The secondary kids will be able to start utilizing their prepaid accounts, and we'll be able to get into the swing of things over there at the secondary sites. We expect that probably within 1 month of them starting their school year on August 10th, we'll be back into offering a la carte foods. All right, next we'll roll out phase 3, which we expect will start in January. Phase 3 is at our elementary schools, and it's training our students to start using the PIN numbers again in the lunch line. Now, this will start in January. We'll start with grades 4, 5, and 6. We'll start with this group first. It will be a larger group because we expect that these students probably have some recollection of using their PIN numbers in the lunch lines, and they probably have better fine motor skills, so they'll be able to pick up quickly. After that, we'll move on to our 2nd and 3rd graders. This group we expect to take a little bit longer because when schools closed, These students back then, they would have been about 2 grades younger. Their fine motor skills at the time, or even now, are a little bit less, and they have less memory of using their pen pads in line. After that, we will take even more time to focus on our first graders. Next phase will be our kinder and then our TK. So you might ask, why are we going to use our point of sale if we don't have to? The reason for that is because we know that we need to retrain our students for the new school year 22-23. We strongly believe that if we don't train them now, that we'll pay for it next year. So we all know that kids, if they see lines, a lot of times they choose not to wait in them. So for us, we see an advantage in taking the time this year to train them, so that way the lunch lines can move a little bit more quickly next fall. All right, so I've gone over the 3-part strategy for the opening of our school year. Now I'll go over just some issues that we've seen along the way. Our number one issue, besides being busy, as all of you know, this is probably the busiest summer you have ever seen. I know that we are still operating, and we're operating the largest summer school in the history of our school district. But we're also busy because things are just chaotic. One thing that we have noticed is supply chain issues. I reached out to our distributor to see what advice we could come up with to better assist our community, our food director community, as we start the school year. The number one thing that we can do to help ourselves and to help each other is provide lead times and hard commitments to our orders. So instead of just saying, hey, we think we're going to use this every week and this will be our usage, actually put those hard orders in the system. And the reason for this is because our supply chain is broken, and giving that time and putting those hard orders really does allow our distributors to work with our manufacturers on securing the product they need to make sure that they're able to secure the product we need. It'll help them. It's the biggest gift you can give our industry partners at this time, but it'll also ensure that there's less many deviations for you. Challenge number 2, we are significantly understaffed. I know we have about 57 vacancies out of 320. We even have some school sites that currently only have 1 employee. So how are we going to tackle that? Right now, we're working with voluntary movements. So because of our CSEA contract, we are not allowed to tell somebody they have to move. So all we can do is ask them nicely. We're also going to provide central kitchen support to any school site that needs it, which will be a lot. We're also planning for lower participation because we will have slower lines due to having less staff. One item that I have found very successful for our school district is increasing the communication with site admin. I know as a food service director, a lot of times in the past, I have felt that that I didn't want to bug my site administrators with things because I know how busy they are. However, when it comes to lunchtime and reopening the school year for a better normal, I find that, increasing the communication, providing that reassurance to our principals that, hey, you're going to be taken care of, we know what we're doing, outlining clear processes, and letting them know how they can help, because we are short-staffed. We have these 2 or 3 hour positions that are really challenging to fill. And if you can no longer deliver food to the kinder playground like you used to in the past, yeah, they might need to provide someone for you to provide better service inside the cafeteria. This year, we implemented requiring our principals to allow child nutrition to review bell schedules before making them final. I have to say this has been key to keeping our labor costs down and has allowed us to really partner with our principals to get lunch schedules out there that work for the best interests of students, but also for the child nutrition department. Like I can say, for example, some principals are just new and they don't know what their options are. So reaching out and saying like, hey, your bell schedule, it's not going to work for child nutrition. It's going to cost us so much extra money. But hey, can we get together and I can even show you some bell schedules that I think would work. And they're just like, oh my God, yeah, please just show me some example bell schedules and we can get this sorted out. So just increasing that communication has been extremely helpful. Lastly, I'll just end with, standardizing the processes as much as possible. In a district like mine with 53 school sites, as much as we would love to provide that individual care for each school site, we have found that standardizing the processes wherever we can really allows us to focus our attention and resources on other areas of the department that really need it. Deviate only where it makes sense. And that's really all I have.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Megan. Really appreciate you sharing about your three-part strategy and talking through some challenges and then some great solutions that you have. If we have any questions, we'll go ahead and you can put those in the chat or in the Q&A. We will have a time for question and answer at the end. And with that, I would like to introduce our next speaker. Is going to present on lessons learned, alternative income forms, and back to school planning. We have Ozma Chandri, Budget Control Clerk at Fullerton Joint Union High School District.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. And I will just give you an overview of what we did in last year, 2021 school year, and what our plans and strategies are for next school year. So in 2021 school year, we operated under summer seamless feeding option summer waiver. And I think that was the most equitable and compassionate way of serving to the students. And during distance learning, we offered grab and go meals by walk up or drive through from the curbside. But during hybrid, we also offered grab and go from both from the curbside and inside the school. In beginning of 2021 school year, we spent funds on equipment to be ready for the operations under the district safety and COVID-19 prevention plan. Next slide, please. We purchased motorized carts, and 2 carts were actually funded by No Kid Hungry grant. And we also purchased handheld scanners to replace the touch pads. We also purchased cordless tablets with Wi-Fi to be used with the motorized carts. And each cart had 2 POS, one for recording the breakfast transactions and one for recording the lunch transactions under the mealtime waiver. Next slide, please. And these are the 2 cars that we purchased from the No Kid Hungry grant. Next slide, please. And in 2021 school year, even though we were under summer seamless waiving option, but we used the National School Lunch application for LCFF and PEBT card. And we adhere to all the NSLP rules, including the verification process of application. And the response rate to the verification process was very poor. It was only 10%. And the eligibility for the LCFF dropped tremendously from 51% to 46% because the families, everyone was getting a free meal, so they didn't have an incentive to, I guess, to comply with the verification process. Next slide, please. So we will in 2021 school year, we are continuing to use the motorized car for serving meals, and carts will be located at different locations inside the campus to serve as many students as possible. And we will have more point of sale serving stations, and we are planning to hire more substitute food service worker because as we will be serving more students. Next slide, please. So in summer seamless waiving an alternative household income form. So even though next year we will still be under summer seamless feeding waiver option, but we have decided to use the alternative household income form instead of the National School Lunch application form. And data collected from alternative household income form is acceptable for both LCFF and PEBT card. And forms may be collected online and electronic signatures are acceptable. School districts can also complete an alternative household income form on behalf of a student's household by collecting the required information over the telephone provided by the school district documents. Provided the school district documents the date, time, and the name of the student's adult household, members spoken to all, and the date and time and signature of the district staff member collecting the information. And when we are using the alternative household income form, no verification process is required. Families can submit a second income form in case of change in size of household and income. And school districts are not required to issue a letter to the household, including the income eligibility guidelines along with the alternative income form as is required with the National School Lunch application form. Next slide, please. So this is the form that we are planning to use next year. This is a one of this form that I have used from, it is from the CDE website. So it is a prototype CDE form. Next slide, please. This is the second page of this form. It has information about what needs to be included in the household income. And next slide. This is another form. It is also for a prototype form CD from the CDE website. Next slide, please. This is another form. You can use any of those forms. Next slide, please. This is another form from the CDE. You can also, this is very simple. You can also use this form. Next slide. This is another form. This is very similar to a national school lunch application. Next slide, please. And school district can actually use any of the CDE prototype forms or can develop their own forms. Forms that contain the following minimum information would be considered a valid documentation for free and reduced price meal eligibility. Information sufficient to identify the students. Information sufficient to determine that the student or household meets the federal income eligibility criteria sufficient to qualify for either a free or reduced price meal under the Richard B. Russell National School Lunch Act, and a certification that information is true and correct by the pupil's adult household member. Next slide, please. So we have certainly had some challenges in using the income form because the point of sale system that we use, Meal Plus, and now we are transitioning towards the Titan POS, they do not tag students free and reduced as with the lunch applications. So the new point of sale system we purchased, Titan, it generates only an income form report. And from the report, eligibility statuses are uploaded manually into Aries and into Titan. So there cannot be an auto import, cannot be set in Titan where the families are filling out an income form and it automatically tags the students in Titan. So what we decided to use the Aries built-in feature of income survey. Families already have an Aries account and they use this account to register students. So we will be directing all the families to Aries portal to complete the alternative income survey in Aries. And Aries will tag the students and free and reduced. So we do not have to tag the Titan again, import the information and import again into Aries. So our school district website will have information about the free and reduced, about free meals and how families can complete the income forms on Aries portal. And families can simply log into Aries and can complete the Fullerton High School District income data form in the data confirmation section. And the eligible families, if they want, we can send them a free and reduced eligibility letter so they can use it to get some other discounts. Next slide, please. So next slide. Yes, so our this is how it looks when they log into Aries portal. So Aries will take them to complete the income survey form. So this is very similar to the Aries has this built-in feature that they can fill out the this income survey form, but we will also have those paper forms available at our school sites. So families who do not want to go to the Aries portal and complete it online, they can also fill out the income form that I have just shared with you guys. Next slide, please. And we have information on our website that the families, even though they are getting a free meal from this from the school, but being eligible for a free and reduced meal has additional benefits. When they fill out the income form, there are more benefits, which is more than a meal. And it has information about that, how they can, if they qualify for, if they complete the income form and they qualify for free and reduced meals, and they can use the eligibility letter to get discounts for utility bills, and they can also get discount for AP testing, for SAT, PSAT, or ACT, and there are also discounts available for college admissions and for college applications. So all the information we are providing to them, that even though they are getting a free meal from the site, but if they complete the income form, they will be more beneficial. there were more benefits attached to it. Next slide, please. So I have this information that all the forms that I have attached in the presentation are from this link. And it has some more information about this link about the local control funding formula. Yeah, next slide, please. So thank you. That's the end of my presentation. And these are actually some of the thank you notes that the students are from students and from the community members for our staff. And I'm sharing with you guys. So if you have any more questions, you can write in a chat and I will try to answer them.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Asma. You are a wealth of knowledge, and thank you so much for sharing your expertise. Really great to see these wonderful thank yous here in your slide. As Asma said, you can type your questions in the chat or in the Q&A as well. And then I'd love to introduce our next speaker, who's be speaking on back to school rollout. We have Triest Huey, who's the Director of Food Services at Fontana Unified School District. Welcome, Triest.
Thank you, Kelly. Just a quick explanation of why I have this picture on here. This picture was taken the weekend before we did our holiday meal service, right before the winter break. And this is just lessons learned. If you need a food service director to come in and receive an order, repalletize about $500,000 worth of food on a Saturday or Sunday without any makeup, with her team behind her, we are willing to do it. So I think most of you have had similar experiences, just seeing the value of our teams and what we're willing to do to go above and beyond for our community. So the dedication of my staff, I just want to say between March 16th, 2020 and yesterday, our last grab and go community curbside meal service, we served 19.6 million meals. So just again, super proud of my team, lots of lessons learned throughout this process, but it really took a huge effort on everyone's part. Next slide, please. So what did we learn from the pandemic? I think the first thing for me is it really gave me a renewed appreciation for what we do and how we serve our community. And I can't tell you enough, I'm sure everybody has these stories. We worked as a team, we were supportive, we heard each other's challenges, we heard each other's stories, and just overwhelmingly, people embraced the challenges and the changes that were happening. It was just amazing to me every day on how everybody worked together and we did what we needed to do to serve our community. What we also learned is that pallet jacks really are like gold. And so when we start moving around pallets instead of cases of food, it's crazy how quickly these things become so important. And so Fontana Unified now has, I don't know, in excess of 200 to 300 pallet jacks. I have no idea, but we never had them before. And these are things that we learned going throughout this process. Next slide, please. One of the big takeaways, being on collaboratives like this, we know that working together is huge, but how important it was throughout the pandemic to really reach out to our peers. Here's a couple pictures. One is from San Jacinto, the picture on the left. We went to visit San Jacinto and learn from what they were doing. The one on the right was an event that Rialto was holding, and my team went out there to see what Rialto was doing. We really worked with our peers throughout the state to find out what everyone was doing to really make our program a success for our community. And that will definitely continue, is those relationships that we've built throughout this process. The other thing that we found was working with the city of Fontana and other departments within our district. We got to know them much better. And, like I believe Megan said earlier, we normally just try to support our school sites, kind of stay out of their way. We really want to be behind the scenes so that we can support student learning. But being front and center during the pandemic, it really brought out all those other departments in the district. And now we forged relationships that going forward will really help our kids and our program. The other thing was the remote team meetings, and they work. And I have 44 school sites. I should have mentioned that. I have 44 school sites with about 38,000 students, and getting all of my kitchen operators together is not usually a reality. We don't have the space for those types of meetings, but being able to meet we use Microsoft Teams, and being able to meet regularly and share the same message was a huge benefit. And one of the things my staff has shared that they really want to continue with those regular meetings. We'll meet on site as needed. We are having an on-site opening year meeting next week, where I'll have all 250 employees in one location. But going forward, we will have remote meetings more regularly so that we're able to keep open communication and feedback between district office and our school sites. Next slide, please. Another kind of fun thing that came out of the pandemic is my staff loved doing the contests. And I know some of you have already been doing this prior to the pandemic, but these are things we picked up during the pandemic, is how do we keep morale high? And doing holiday costume contests and cafe decorating contests was huge in keeping my staff engaged. We started a channel on Microsoft Teams called Positivity is Contagious, and they were able to share pictures from their site, give little shout outs, share notes they'd received from parents and families. And that's definitely something we're going to carry on and continue. Is there ways to communicate all the positive things that are happening at their sites, just to help build morale and sustain that momentum. Next slide, please. So some more of the nuts and bolts changes we're bringing to 21-22 is we will be starting breakfast in the classroom. Surprisingly, I have principals calling me asking if they can start day one breakfast in the classroom. We are waiting till January. I know that some of our teachers have been very nervous about students taking off their masks in the classroom to eat. And so that's been one of our challenges with implementing the program. And so we've decided to wait till January to implement, but then we plan on implementing at all of our sites over the next year. And so we've already got all the equipment, we're ready. We purchased it not knowing what school is going to look like this past year. So we're ready for our rollout with breakfast in the classroom, but that's definitely a positive that's been asked for. We do have salad bars at all 30 of our elementary schools. And prior to COVID, we had open salad bars that were heavily utilized. Our kids loved them, the teachers loved them. And when we come back to school on August 9th, we will have the salad bar set up, but we will have all IW fruits and vegetables. So thankfully, DOD and our produce vendor have been great partners in making sure there's a variety of fruits and veggies available that are already wrapped. So we're going to start out with a salad bar with wrapped fruits and veggies, and hopefully over time transition back to a normal salad bar. I don't have the staff to package all of our items on site. Some of you may. I know we're shorthanded. In March, we were down about 40 staff. I've filled 19 of those positions, and now we still have 21 open positions. And so trying to find items that are already wrapped and putting on our salad bar has been one of our challenges coming into this year, but we're finding that there's quite a few products available. The other item that, or the other change that we'll be making is a cashless program. And so prior to the pandemic, I had 41 of my schools were on a provision, and 3 of our schools were still taking cash, and we had paid students. I've decided not to, to really limit a la carte. So we're only going to be selling water and second meals. And so students will have to put money on their account, and adults will have to create an account and put money on their account, so that we have a completely cashless program. Part of this is just to expedite the line because we are shorthanded. Part of this is really to promote eating a full meal instead of brownies or Doritos. So I'm a little bit nervous about this process, but I think hopefully it'll go well. It'll also reduce the costs of having an armored truck transport and processes in place for managing cash. And then finally, our last change is moving towards more scratch cooking this year. One of the things that came back to us from many of our parents and peers that were having meals at home and our products is that really in some areas we probably can do better, and we have the resources to really try some new recipes and see what we can do a little bit different and improve our menu. And so that's our goal for 21-22 is to experiment with a lot more scratch cooking and try and roll that out 22-23. Next slide, please. And that is it. We had an exceptional year, and we learned a lot from it, but I think the main thing coming out is that it took a team, it took all of us, it took all of you out there to make this a success for our community. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Trias, for some amazing updates. I know I really loved seeing your holiday costumes and also learning about your positivity is contagious, I think is what you called the Microsoft Teams channel. So thank you so much. Again, please feel free to type any questions for Q&A. And we can go to the next slide. And I'd like to welcome our next speakers for Building a Bridge to Teacher and Classified Unions. We have a few presenters here. From El Rancho Unified School District, we have Billy Saavedra, Margaret Rentiera, and Connie Hernandez. So with that, I'll let you guys take it away.
Hello, everybody. As I said, I have my assistant and my secretary with me. They're my A team here in the school district. Next slide, please. So in 2019, 2020, we decided to do our big kickoff. ARSD wanted to start the big program because we knew that our students weren't eating breakfast at home for several reasons, such as items not being available for students to eat, not wanting to go to school early for breakfast, students not wanting to get to school early or eat at school because they were embarrassed. So we actually started the big program at 4 of our elementary school sites. We also started Provision 2 base here for those 4 sites because we had identified 70% or higher free and reduced. During the month of September, we had stakeholder meetings, which involved our cafeteria staff, our parent groups, teachers, and custodians. We did our big kickoffs the month of October through December, and we did one kickoff every 3 to 4 weeks, depending on what was going on in the district. Next slide.
Concerns at stakeholder meetings. Teachers concerns, meal times cutting into instructional time. Breakfast was served while homework was being collected. Morning announcements were made and while attendance was taken. Classroom spills and messes. Very few spills and messes were reported. Custodians only had to go out a couple of times to take care of issues. Taking food service jobs away. More food service jobs and/or hours were created or given. Concern from classified employees. More work for cafeteria and custodial staff. Custodial staff were able to work on other tasks in the morning instead of working in the cafeteria during breakfast time. More food service jobs and/or hours were created or given. What to do with noon supervisors. Noon supervisors assisted lower grade students with opening packages and handing out meals. They also assist with bringing back classroom parts. Supplies staff may need. Purchase what is needed for the program. Parents. How was a student to learn or concentrate while eating? They found out that students were able to pay attention to what was going on in class while eating. Changes were made to the program based on both feedback and concerns from all stakeholders.
Next slide, please.
Purchasing what is needed to run a successful program. Next slide, please. These are some of the pictures of the items that we purchased. Classroom meal carts, custodial carts, 32-gallon trash cans and dollies, 13-gallon trash cans and bags for classes, plate holders, wipes, gloves, milk jugs, breakfast champion badges, and posters. A few of the items that were purchased after we started the program were the breakfast plates or the plate holders, because we found that our younger students were having problems carrying their items to their desks. So these were a big help. And these were actually suggestions from our kindergarten teachers. Next slide.
So we did also have to implement some menu changes. So for menu changes, we got food service staff input. We removed all condiments for our breakfast menu, such as syrups and jellies. We replaced all of our menu items that were sticky and crumbly per teacher's request. We made sure our vendor had our new menu items available. Most of the items were pre-packaged. About 70% of our items were thaw serve, although we did put them in our heating cabinets to take the chill out, and the kids enjoyed it a little bit more. Next slide. So this is what our menu looked like. It was pretty basic. They also received their choice of milk. They received fresh fruit and or juice. Next slide, please.
Once the program started, our breakfast numbers increased about 250% at the 4 school sites. We went from serving approximately 100 breakfasts to 350 a day. Lunch participation increased about 25%. Parents said their students wanted to be at school on time so they can eat breakfast in the class. Teachers reported students' attention span was much better. Tardiness decreased. Amount of students going home ill fell to only a couple a week. Union support from both CSEA and our teachers union. Next slide.
Word around campus. These are some of the statements we heard. I'll let you guess if it's classified or certificated. I really wanted this program to fail, but it's working out pretty good. My students are rushing their parents to get them to school so they can eat. I have more time to do things now that I don't have to be in the class in the cafeteria in the morning. I can actually eat my breakfast and drink my coffee. I thought it was going to be more work, but it's actually easier. It's nice to drink my coffee while it's still hot. Next slide, please. These are a few pictures of our students and our breakfast champions. For some of the lower grades, the carts can be a little heavy, so we have 2 breakfast champions per classroom. Next slide, please.
Hello, my name is Tony Hernandez, president of CSEA Untitled Chapter. Hello, my name is Tony Hernandez, president of CSEA Untitled Chapter 7, and I wanted to give a testimony to the process and institution of this new Breakfast in the Classroom program. Everything started with just a conversation with the director, Ms. Billy Saavedra, and led to other conversations with custodians and cafeteria staff about just how workloads might change or conditions might change, and really work with the teams to meet those concerns and make this as easy as possible to a seamless transition. Speaking with a couple of custodians who are going to be starting the program this upcoming year, they had a few comments, which here's Crystal. Hi, go ahead.
Communication for one about how we'll get the lunches or the breakfasts to the classrooms, and then the accumulation of trash once the children finish eating breakfast.
And those comments were similar when we first started the program. For the first 4 sites, everyone had those same concerns. Now, after being able to pilot for a year, custodians like Juan Carlos have experienced a change in their work. Here's Juan Carlos.
My concern was that it was going to be a lot of mess in the classrooms, but I was wrong. There was everything worked almost perfect. Like once a month they spill like orange juice or milk. I just put the trash cans outside, and I go like after 9:30. I go around, pick up the trash. Very simple. I think for me it was easier because I don't have to deal with the cafeteria, and then I had time to do extra stuff outside.
I think it's important that when implementing this program, communication is open and everyone is respected and understood, that people aren't just trying to get out of it. They generally have an issue with potentially changing workloads. And as long as they understand that there's a give and take, custodians no longer have to clean cafeterias in the morning, but they do have to pick up trash in the hall from a trash can. You know, those kinds of things are the ebb and flow of the situation. But as long as people are not overworked in the end and they're comfortable with the situation, everything ends up okay. Thank you for everyone who put this program together. The kids enjoy it, and the staff are satisfied with the situation.
What's next? 2021-2022 elementaries will participate in BIC, which is 4 additional sites. District will be implementing CEP for the whole district. District will also be implementing grab-and-go breakfasts at all middle schools and continue to work hand in hand with our union partners to ensure a successful program for our students. Next slide, please.
We'd like to give a special thanks to No Kid Hungry. The staff at No Kid Hungry are truly amazing. The assistance is a part with every step of the process. If I had a silly question, they didn't laugh at me. I know I called on a on a few of them more than once. They can assist with getting us information, ideas, different resources in areas. He continues to work on their partnership for years to come. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much to the team there for a great presentation. Really cool to see the video you shared and learn some great tips and hearing how you implemented some changes from the feedback you received from your partners. So thank you so much. And up next, it's my pleasure to introduce Jared Call, Senior Advocate from Nourish, California.
Hey, everybody. Thanks, Kelly. And thanks everyone for having me. I am just blown away. I have to start with a huge thank you to everyone on this call and throughout the entire state and country. Everyone in the school nutrition realm has really been on the front lines, during the pandemic, as you are all the time, but really it's been highlighted. And so I think I have to start by saying how impressed we all are in the policy side about what's been happening on the direct service side. I did not realize pallet jacks were that important. Trieste, 200 or 300 pallet jacks. That's a lot of food moving around. So great job, everybody. And I'm going to give some updates on some of the policies that have come out of the past year in response to the unprecedented need, trying to build back in a more sustainable way. Not just during crises, but during non-crises, so that we can make sure all of our kids get fed and all of our families get fed. So we can go to the next slide, Tommy. That's got the plan. So going to start with state legislation, talk about some of the things that have already gotten done in this exciting state legislative session, talk about some of the things that are still moving, and then share some opportunities to advocate in support of all of our shared goals to make sure that Californians have the nutritious food they need. Especially kids in an academic environment. And we're going to share some opportunities both at the state level and then some big picture things coming up at the federal level with child nutrition reauthorization. Hope to have some time to answer any questions there are, but obviously you can reach out to me or the team at Nourish California anytime. So I think without any further ado, let's get to it. We can go to the next slide, Tommy. So these were the 4 priorities that Nourish California led or supported this year. I don't like to number them. That implies a ranking, but all of our legislative priorities are on equal footing. So we're going to start with a Calfresh item that we've been leading actually for 2 or 3 years now. Then move on to maybe the biggest topic of interest for this group, the Universal School Meals Budget request that was touched on earlier by Robin. And then talk about some things that got done that have been in the works for a really long time, that we've been fighting for over a decade in the childcare nutrition space. And then talk about one of our biggest campaigns that's ongoing. That's our Food for All campaign led by Senator Hurtado. It's a bill and a budget request. So that's the plan. We can go to the next slide, Tommy, and start with Calfresh. So this was really focused, again, this has been something we've been working on for 2 or 3 years now, recognizing we have a low Calfresh participation rate overall in our state. We rank about 6th worst of all states in terms of connecting eligible people to Calfresh, which is our largest and most impactful nutrition assistance program. But we really have a problem when it comes to connecting older adults, people age 60 and over. We have the absolutely worst ranking of all states. Only about 1 in 5 eligible older adults in California is getting connected to that nutrition assistance. And obviously during the COVID crisis, a real light was shown on that. That's a resource that's sitting in DC. It's money that's paid for groceries that's just sitting there instead of coming here and turning into food on people's tables and money being spent at local stores and farmers markets. So what we took a look at is the paper application. There's been some real great progress with online applications. If people are familiar with getcalfresh.org, that works really great. But for a lot of older adults and people with disabilities, they have lower rates of internet access and lower rates of comfort in providing sometimes what they consider sensitive information over the internet. So we took a look at that paper application, which is 18 pages long, if you can believe it. And we know that we can shrink that down by eliminating a lot of those questions that are irrelevant because many of these households don't have earned income, they don't have wages. They get most of their income, if they have income, through Social Security or disability. And so that's information that's already known to the state and known to the county. So we directed the state through this legislation to create a simplified and shorter Calfresh application and also ensure that business could be done entirely over the phone, recognizing how important that was. And we are really excited. We were advancing a bill, but we actually got this done even earlier than we had anticipated this year because we were able to get it done through the budget, through the Budget Human Services Omnibus bill that was just passed and signed a couple weeks ago. So the bill number SB 107 that it originated as is now inactive, but we got this done. It's been chaptered in the code. And so we're really, really excited to have this done. We're already starting our meetings with the State Department of Social Services to figure out how to start the process of redesigning this application. I and my colleague Cameron have been reaching out to other states that have done this to learn some of those best practices. So we're really excited, and there'll be some work groups at the state level to help make sure that the application works as intended and really does simplify the application process. So in terms of an advocacy opportunity, this, we spent 2 years saying, please do this. We were raised like everyone else on this call. You say please and you say thank you. So this is an opportunity. Advocacy means saying thank you when those state leaders and those decision makers do the right thing. So our advocacy ask here is just to thank the governor and thank those state leaders who prioritize this important change. And I'll share some tools on how to make it easy to do that if people are interested later on in the presentation. So that's win number one. And we can move on now, Tommy, to the next one. And this is one that, again, is a big topic of interest here, and that's the Universal School Meals Budget Request. Cannot be overstated how big this is. We are really, really excited, along with, I think, everybody on the call, but there are still some questions about implementation, right? Robin alluded to some of that. So we're excited about the win. Again, this is another advocacy ask where we want to thank state leaders, those budget leaders and the governor who got this done in its first year. And then in terms of implementation, we're reaching out to CDE, just like probably all of you, to learn more about the details. And we want to make sure that this is done in a way that works for schools and that works for kids and that works for families. And I think we're extra excited that the original version of this bill didn't have breakfast included as part of the vision there. And we were really happy to work with our partners at No Kid Hungry and others to make sure that that most important meal of the day was prioritized in this legislation as well. So if you were one of the people that advocated, I know some of the names in the list of participants were really active pushing for this. Thank you. Pat yourselves on the back. This is really amazing and more to come starting in 2023. We can go on to the next one, Tommy. This is the childcare ask. Like I said, we've been working for over 10 years to restore the state per meal reimbursement in childcare settings that was cut in the last recession, for people that remember that. And so we've been working with our partners at the Child Care Food Roundtable and other anti-hunger partners and the Early Care and Education Coalition to get this done. And we are thrilled to have gotten it done this year. We have a per meal reimbursement for K through 12 students. We should have the same in childcare. So I don't want to preview too much about what we might be thinking of doing going forward, but we've long said there should be parity between childcare and K through 12 nutrition. And we just made a big step forward. That's probably even understating it in the K through 12 world. And so we very well could be asking for parity to continue along those lines. But for right now, again, we're just celebrating this ongoing investment to make sure that CACFP operators can get some help from the state, because obviously cost of food, cost of living, cost of providing any service in California is a little bit or a lot disconnected from where things are set at the federal level. So You probably are noticing a pattern here with the advocacy opportunities. It's another thank you to the governor. You know, we got a bill to his desk just a couple years ago, and it was a veto. We were really, really disappointed, but we got through to him this year, thanks in large part to people like you and other partners. So that's another great thank you. Tommy, we can go on to the next one, which is an ongoing campaign and one of our biggest asks we've ever done, and that's our Food for All campaign. And we know, again, the spotlight was put on this during the pandemic, but it's something that certainly was a problem before the pandemic, and that's that too many of our immigrant friends and neighbors and schoolmates and colleagues are completely shut out of existing programs, and as we saw also with some pandemic relief programs. And so we started about 3.5 years ago now in 2018, early 2018, talking to stakeholders, talking to our partners in the immigrant rights space, and set up a work group at the state level called the Food for All work group to say, hey, what can we do about this in a sustainable way? We're funding food banks every year. That's not sustainable. We just want equity and parity. We want to eliminate that unjust exclusion in Calfresh and the California Food Assistance Program that discriminates solely on the basis of immigration status. And that work group produced a report that was published in 2019. And one of the recommendations was to take the existing state-funded program, California Food Assistance Program, that serves a very narrow set of qualified immigrants. It's only about 35 to 40,000 people statewide. And obviously the need is much greater than that. And we have this tool in our toolbox. We have the existing infrastructure. We just need to open up the eligibility. And so that was the campaign that we started this year. I think some people on this call are participants in that campaign and that coalition. So thank you. And we did get a win this year. We got a commitment from the state to do this. But it starts with something that's not really great for people out of the gate, and that's funding for automation, to change the eligibility system that counties use to enroll people and get them their EBT cards and get them signed up so that it would factor in the new expanded eligibility. So we got $30 million to start that process, and that is great. That's a real commitment, and the legislature in the bill that was passed to start this process moving and dedicate that first funding very much said it's their intent to expand this, but in a targeted age-based way. So we're going to work with state leaders and with our coalition to continue to push for the ultimate vision, which is no exceptions and no exclusions at all. So we're celebrating right now, but the shirts that we're printing up and the bumper stickers for next year are going to say something like, you can't eat automation. People can't put automation on the table when they need help putting food on the table. And so we're asking as an advocacy opportunity here. It's another thank you, but it's a thank you and we need to continue to do more until this is done permanently and justly. So we would invite you to do that, and also join the Food for All Coalition. We are growing, we're expanding. We're, I think, up to about 120 organizations all over the state. So if you have the interest and capacity, I can share with you how to sign up for those updates and join those biweekly calls. So I think that is it for our updates on state legislation. This was one of the most fun years to give that update I've ever had. It's a lot of winning. It's a lot of thank yous. And so I also want to thank everybody here for what you did to get those important wins and so many others in the state budget. So, but shifting gears to federal advocacy, this group probably is aware of child nutrition reauthorization and what that is. That's where the school meal programs are reauthorized, where funding is set, and where new policies are implemented. It also authorizes the WIC program and the Child and Adult Care Food Program. It's typically done every 5 years, but the timeline in DC often leaks out a little bit. I'll just put it that way. And so it has been a while since this has been reauthorized, but it's a huge opportunity, and there is some real political will in both the House and the Senate to get something done this year. So that's the umbrella concept of the opportunity. And we can move on to what the process looks like, and then how you can get engaged in making sure that we have smart policies and bold investments that make sure kids are fed. So we can go ahead to the next slide, Tommy. It's probably good to start with like what was done last time, right? So CEP, that wasn't a thing before the last child nutrition reauthorization. And I think that has changed things for a lot of administrators and a lot of families across the state and across the country. It also updated the nutrition standards for childcare meals, standards for other competitive foods sold in schools. And then that big change that came to WIC just these last couple of years of finally moving to the EBT card and getting away from those coupon booklets. a lot more done, but I think those are kind of the highlights, just to give people a sense of how big this really is. And we can go to the next slide and start talking about what the process will look like. It does start early if people have been through a CNR process before or a farm bill process before with some of these big bills that get done every 5 years or so. Congress likes to start early by listening. So that could start very soon, that they would go out and hold listening sessions where people can say what they want to see and what they're seeing in their communities and what kind of solutions they want to see prioritized. And then it starts in the House with the Education and Labor Committee. They'll draft their bill. And on the Senate, it's the Agriculture Committee that drafts their bill. They'll pass those separately and then come together and merge those bills into what finally gets done and goes to the president's desk. So we can go to the next slide and start talking about what you can do to make sure that good solutions for your district, for your families, for your kids, and for the state are included in CNR. And this is where we like to say, you know, do what you can do, get in where you fit in. You can, if you're more active and you have a relationship or want to create a relationship with your member, you can ask them to co-sponsor marker bills. We'll talk about some of those in a minute. But you can also just be active on social media, talk to your friends, talk to your colleagues, talk to your neighbors, and see if they have the capacity and the interest to get involved. Next slide, Tommy. So yeah, those marker bills. So marker bills are what end up feeding into the bigger bill. So these are things that legislators put out there, Congress people put out there to start refining the policy and start shaping the debate for big priorities. So these are just 4. There are some other child nutrition marker bills out there. Access to healthy foods for young children, not surprisingly, is about improving access to CACFP. The WISE investment in children, you can probably figure out, knowing that Congress people really love their acronyms. That's a WIC improvement bill. And the Universal School Meals Program Act is just what it says. It's sort of a federal version of what we were able to do in California. That's obviously really big and really exciting. And then there's also the Stop Child Hunger Act of 2021, and that's around summer EBT and extending that permanently. We all saw how pandemic EBT was a real lifesaver during the pandemic, but we've long known, of course, that during the summer months, kids that rely on those free and reduced price meals can sometimes have trouble accessing their summer meal programs, especially if they live in challenging areas. And summer EBT can be another complement to those existing summer programs. So those are some of them. I just really quickly took a look at co-sponsors, and on the Stop Child Hunger Act, Congressman Mike Levin from San Diego OC area is a lead on that bill. So you could reach out to him if you're a constituent and thank him, see what his office thinks might be helpful to help get some momentum behind that bill. And then for the WIC bill, the WISE Investment in Children, Linda Sanchez from the LA and Orange County area is a co-sponsor on that. Just wanted people to know because we've got constituents on the call. So you can reach out to your member, especially if they're on that committee, and you can reach out to us if you want to know how to find that out, or just ask us what we know, or the best way to reach out to schedule a legislative visit, send them an email, give them a call and say, hey, this is really important to us. It's a big opportunity and we want you to do what's in your power to make the changes that we need to see in our community. So we can go to the next slide. So beyond direct advocacy with members, you can also organize visits to bring a group of people, right, to an in-district visit when they're not in DC, when they're back at home. And they'll also be holding, again, the listening sessions and town halls and things like that you can attend and maybe get a question in or an urging to prioritize something that will help end child hunger. And then we can go to the next slide. It takes more than just us. So you want to reach out to your friends, your neighbors, your partners, and encourage them to do so as well. And then the media is really important in shaping the priorities in the debate around these issues. So if you've got the time and capacity to write an op-ed or partner with us, we love to partner and write op-eds that can be published in important key districts. So if that's something you're interested in doing, please do reach out to us. We'd love to partner with you on that. Next slide. I think we're just about to the end. So I I gave a lot of advocacy opportunities, but they can all be found in one place. If you just go to our website and then that little drop-down menu, get involved, there's an action center, and all of those thank yous for those specific wins that we got in the budget are there with their own little pages and their own little forms. We have these amazing advocacy tools now where you can just fill out a short little online form, and it will send a direct message to your member, your key member. You can customize those messages, of course, so you can say what you want to say, but encourage you to do that. It really just takes a minute, and it really does make a difference. We've also got some early stuff up there about CNR, but if we go to the last slide, you really should feel free to reach out to me anytime, particularly if it's something around state legislation or the state budget. And if you have questions about federal advocacy or CNR, feel free to reach out to me. But just, I will probably refer you to our in-house expert, my colleague, Melissa. So you should feel free to email her directly as well. So I've talked a lot. I don't know what the timing is for questions or if we have any now, but I'm totally happy. Holly, I agree. Melissa is awesome. Or we could take questions later, whatever is the best format. So thanks, Tommy, for moving those slides along. I know that was pretty quick and a lot. And thanks again for having us. And please do, again, reach out anytime. We want to partner and we want to make big things happen like we've already been able to do this year. So thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jared. What an exciting update to hear about some amazing wins in the state and with your advocacy efforts and leadership. And also really appreciated some clear action steps for how we can, get engaged and continue to be involved. We actually are up at our question and answer time for all of our speakers. So Jared, any questions that come through, I'm going to pass it over to Gina Osborne of the Orange County Healthcare Agency, and she's going to facilitate our question and answer time now.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. And we actually did have a few questions to Megan, and Megan actually answered them in the question and answer box. I'm happy to read those questions and answers if you like. And then Daisy actually posted a question to Ozma in the chat. So should I just go ahead and read those questions and answers?
Sure, that'd be great.
Okay, so the questions from Megan, the first one was asking her to go over the phased rollout again. And so phase one is simple, simple, simple. Smaller menus, no POS or PIN numbers. The focus is speedy lines and remastering our cooking and safety skills. Phase two, secondary extras. So they're going to allow a la carte purchases and utilize repayment accounts. Reimbursable meals will not require PIN, but extras will. And then phase three is in January and begin to retrain our elementary students to use their PIN. Group one will be grades 4 through 6. Group 2 will be grades 2 and 3. Group 3 is grade 1, and then group 4 is kindergarten, and then group 5 is TK. So that's their phased rollout from Corona Norco. And then there was another question to Megan regarding how are you going about hiring staff? Do you plan on using student helpers or parent volunteers? And Megan replied that hiring staff continues to be a challenge. We've noticed that some applicants aren't really interested in coming to our interviews. They just need to show unemployment that they're applying for jobs. We are recruiting through adult ed, local junior colleges, utilizing student works and encouraging parents to apply. They're also reclassifying noon aides or any other classification who's willing to put in extra hours. And the district is currently not allowing parent volunteers on any campus for liability reasons. And then the last question from Megan was, how long do you envision phase one lasting? And she replied, phase one will last as long as it needs to and might last longer at some sites than others due to staff vacancies and remastering their cooking and quality skills. The idea is to move slow, to take advantage of the opportunity to make sure we're mastering the basics first. And then there was a question again, asking if the presentation will be shared. And yeah, just a reminder that the presentation along with the recording will be emailed and also posted on the No Kid Hungry website in about 2 weeks. And then just wanted to go to the chat real quick. Daisy actually had a question for Ozma. Did you get any pushback from admin with using the alternative income form, for example, coming out of the general fund budget? And then she replied, initially our admin was very reluctant, but I did my homework and my director supported me because by just using an SLP lunch application, FRPM numbers were down. And then I'm going to scroll down because I see some extra things here. Okay, we have, sorry, I'm just scrolling through this. Lots of thank yous and appreciations to all of our presenters today. Jared, we did have a question for you, and they're asking, how can we join the Food for All Coalition? Oh, and you put it there. I should have scrolled.
No worries. It's a really quick form, but I can't emphasize enough. You can email us anytime, and we'll tell you answer any question you need to know if you want to know like what the time commitment is. But if you look at that form, there's a lot of different ways you can be involved in your organization. You can be involved, and again, we just get in where you fit in. Do what you can. It's all good.
All right. And then Betty's just thanking you for being a great champion and advocate for our kiddos. So
that's thanks, Betty. But this group is doing a lot. We need us all.
All right, so that's all I have right now for questions and answers. Yeah, it looks like that's all I have right now.
Great. Well, thank you so much for going over those questions, getting some answers. If any last minute questions come up, please feel free to put those in the chat or the Q&A still, or I know there's lots of contact information here on the slides. So next we will have Matt Upton, our industry coach from Speaking of Success. He's going to speak about leaning forward, bringing a better serve. Take it away, Matt.
What an amazing group of presenters today. Everybody that presented today just really brought it home, And lean into this new season of serve and bringing a better serve. I want to remind us of something. Back in the 2019s, we used to fly on airplanes, and we did that on a regular basis. And every airplane, they give us this person next to us and make sure that the children were taken care of before we were taken care of, didn't they? In actuality, they didn't do that. They said, make sure that you put the mask on yourself and then make sure it works on somebody else. And the reason that is because if you're not breathing, you can't take care of somebody else. And to lean in to this year, to really lean in, there's a couple of things that we've got to do on a regular basis. The first one is simply this. We must love what we do and love ourselves as we live what we've learned. You see, during these last 18 months, we have learned a lot of things. We've learned through pivoting, through shifting, through multiple changes, through multiple different ideas and different ways of doing things, bringing pallet jacks in as much as we needed, and just doing everything we can, pop-up tents, everything we could do. We now, as we lean forward to bring a better serve, we must live what we've learned, love ourselves, and love what we do. Now, to love ourselves, that means that we've got to learn how to get rest. We've got to learn how to rest regularly, because in school nutrition, there's been no breaks. There's been no breaks to us. There's been change after change after change. As soon as we get something down, as we chase this elusive normality, there is no such thing as normality across the board in school nutrition. And so that's why it's really important to take care of yourself, getting enough rest, getting good food that we eat. We are advocates for breakfast, and yet for most of us, we are the greatest violators of eating breakfast. I compel you to take care of yourself and get rest, eat breakfast, and then check your attitude on a regular basis and transfer responsibilities to those that need to be. The second thing is elevate the best more than the rest. So often we get in these sessions where we just kind of puke about all the things that are going that aren't comfortable. And what we need to do, what we must do to lean into this new year is not only love and live what we've learned, love ourselves, love what we do. We've got to get in the habit of regularly elevating the best more than the rest. And then number 3, we must analyze and adjust based on our big why. How do we get, what are indicators of what our big why is? I think there's 3. I think there's 3 indicators of what our big why is. The first, it bombards our thoughts regularly. Without attempting to bring it into our thinking, it just goes around everything else that's going on in our thinking, and it shows up on a regular basis. That gives us a hint of what our personal big why is. It bombards our thoughts regularly. Second, it ignites our soul over and over and over again. We can be physically tired, and yet when we are near our big why, as it bombards our thoughts, it ignites our soul. It ignites our thinking. It ignites our emotion. It ignites everything about us and helps us to keep going forward. The third hint that our big why is right there in front of us. It grants us energy and excitement that's sort of unexplainable. When we ought to be tired, when we ought to be exhausted, when we ought to be wore out, our big why gives us energy. It grants us an unexplainable excitement and energy that can't be found anywhere else. Number 4, about leaning in. Not only if we're going to bring, as we bring our better serve, our best serve during this 21-22 year, is to, first of all, as I said, to love what we do, to love ourselves as much as what we do, and live what we've learned, to elevate the best more than the rest, to analyze and adjust based on that big why. And then number 4, and this I think is a biggie. I think we need to be reminded about this on a regular basis with all the legislation, both federally and locally, with all the things that go on in our school boards, with everything that happens around us, everything. What we must do is remind ourselves that we need to simply nurture people more than we nurture policies, procedures, and programs. As important as programs are, without policies and without procedures and without programs, yet more important than those 3 is people and our people. So we must get in the habit of nurturing people more than everything else, more than everybody else. And I know how it is. We get emails all the time. We get memorandums. We get all those things. Yet our people are figuring out how to move forward as they're exhausted. And that's why it's important to nurture them, figure out ways to nurture them. I love the idea of having costume contests and having that on a regular basis, because that nurtures them deep within inside of them. It gives them a glimpse of their own big why, their big why. And remember, our big why always bombards our thoughts. It just comes regularly in there and does that. It ignites our soul, our mind, will, and emotions. It does it over and over and over. And when we ought to be tired, when we ought to be wore out, when we ought to be just totally exhausted, what happens? Our big why comes along, bombards us, ignites us, and grants us an energy and an excitement that's unexplainable. And I want to just say thank you to everyone that's here for all that you have done throughout this pandemic, and how that you had no break, you had no time off, and you jumped in there and you went forward. And remember that with just 0.0005 in 100,000 planes crashed in 2019, and yet every one of them told us to put the oxygen mask on ourselves, meaning that we're supposed to take care of ourselves first. I want to encourage, I want to compel you to take care of yourself. Take extra care of yourselves, and do that as we lean in to the 21-22 school year and bring a better serve. Thank you for allowing me to be part of this today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Matt, for sharing your gratitude. Thank you for sharing your encouragement. Really appreciate having you here to wrap up our sessions. With that, we have come to the end of our webinar for today. I just want to thank all of our speakers. I want to thank all of our attendees, our committee for putting on this webinar today. Thank you to our school nutrition directors and advocates, community partners. Really just grateful for all the hard work, as Matt shared, of all that you've done in this very long past 18 months and moving forward. Make sure that our students, our children are getting access to healthy meals. Thank you so much to all the fantastic presentations today. We will be emailing out the slides and the recording of the webinar in the next week or so, and it will also be posted on the No Kid Hungry website. And then finally, just a reminder, when you exit the meeting today, when you push leave from Zoom, you'll be prompted to actually fill out a quick evaluation. So please take a few minutes to do that before closing out your browser today. Provide any feedback, any suggestions, what we can continue to provide for you in these future webinars. Well, thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your day.